Good evening to everyone and welcome. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Casey Kosorik, and I'm the proud superintendent of the Hilton Central School District. Thank you for joining us for our third community forum of the year and our first centered on the topic of the New York State bell-to-bell cell phone ban, which we are referring to in the Hilton Central School District as distraction-free learning. This evening's forum is anchored into our cadet intentional values that guide our work and interactions every day. You'll see them reflected throughout tonight's presentation. Integrity, as we align our practice to New York State laws while staying true to our commitment to educational excellence. Welcoming and affirming, as we create school environments where every student feels seen, valued, and supported without distractions of technology. People first, as we share how this change was shaped through collaboration with our students, staff, and families. And lifelong learning, as we model adaptability and growth in response to the evolving needs of students in our society. Tonight, we'll begin by reviewing the Board of Education adopted policy. Then you'll hear from several of our building administrators and directors who will share the implementation and what it will look like across grade levels. Finally, we'll take some time to respond to your questions. I want to take a moment to thank those who helped make this evening possible. Our Hilton Board of Education for their thoughtful leadership and support of our students. Mr. Dave Yates, our Director of Communications, for facilitating tonight's webinar. Mr. Josh Ennis for our technology department for coordinating all aspects of this evening's setup. Our closed captionist for ensuring accessibility for all, and the many administrators and staff who contribute to planning and preparation of tonight's session. This forum, like all of our efforts, is designed to ensure clear communication, shared understanding, and a student-centered approach. Please note that tonight's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website so those unable to attend can view it at a later time. Now I'm pleased to introduce tonight's panel of leaders and partners in this work. First, I have Kristen Polini, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Ned Dale, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Adam Geist, Assistant Superintendent for Business, Dr. Jeffrey Green, Principal of Hilton High School, Dr. Mark D'Amico, Principal of Merton Williams Middle School, Dr. Ben Rudd, Principal of Village Elementary School, Melissa Perkowski, Principal of Northwood Elementary School, Derek Warren, Principal of Quest Elementary School, Christy Schaefer, Director of Technology, Julie Forgione, Director of Special Education, and Liz Thornton, Director of Student Services. Over the past several months, we've held informational interactions with parents, staff, students, and school improvement teams to collaboratively design a rollout plan that balances the requirements of the law with our commitment to student well-being and success. We believe the path ahead reflects the very best of our Hilton community, grounded in values, built in relationships, and always learning together. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we got here. And as I've mentioned in the introduction and monologue, this is an expectation set forth by our New York State government. And what we've done is, knowing that this was potentially going to come out from the negotiations of the budget process, we were aware that this would be taking place. So we started to have informal conversations at extracurricular events, sporting events, out in the community, talking to parents and students, and also talking with staff. And we've also visited conversations with other schools, schools that have implemented the Yonder locking pouch. And we've had a lot of conversation about that. We've utilized, as I mentioned before, our school improvement teams to get feedback from multiple stakeholders. And what you'll learn about tonight, we're proud of, in a sense of hopefully finding a balance in making sure that technology is restricted for our students, their personal technology. So when we talk about technology, we're not just talking about cell phones. We're talking about earbuds, smartwatches, smart glasses, Oura rings, anything that you can think of that is distracting to students during the school day. If you anchor into much of the research around cell phones and other electronic devices, you can see that they are a distraction to learning. One of the good things is that we have the ability to make some decisions on how we'll implement, not a decision on if we will implement. It is the expectation and the mandate by the New York State government that starting next year, we move forward with restricting electronic devices for our students. So briefly, I'm going to review the recently board adopted policy, and then I'm going to turn over to some of our administrators so that you can see what it will look like in our day-to-day practice, depending on what student your school attends. All right, just seeing if the slide will advance to the policy highlights. All right, here are some highlights to the Board of Education policy that was adopted at the last Board of Education meeting. Really, the highlights of this policy is to create a safe and secure environment for students and staff. As we know, often distractions to learning, bullying, and other things happen due to the fact that students are accessing their cell phone during the day. It makes it difficult at times for staff to manage their classrooms and other important activities that happen during the school day. We also know as a result that at times there is a lack of person-to-person social interaction that we're looking to support as we move forward as well. We want to minimize those distractions and foster a safer, more focused atmosphere, contributing significantly to the overall well-being and security of our students and staff. Today, you're going to learn about, there were some questions about in the past, several years ago, there were some reasons, safety reasons why students needed to utilize their phone during the mass evacuation of the district. And we're pleased to say that in case of an emergency, students will have access to their cell phones. So we want to assure for our students and their families that in case of a situation like that, students would be able to access their cell phones to contact you. Also, we're proud to say that in each of our offices, there will be student-only telephones, so students can use that phone if they forgot something and they wanted to call home and ask for a parent or a guardian to bring those things in. And at the secondary level, at the high school, students are still able to communicate with their parents and vice versa, utilizing email. The student personal electronic devices must be turned off and silenced without vibration and put away from the time the students enter the school building until the end of the school day. And this is including time spent in class, lunch, study hall, detention, alternative suspension between classes, and any other areas on school property. So questions that I came across while talking to people were around, can my student use their technology on the bus? And yes, they can. They can use their technology on the bus as they come to school. Once they cross that threshold in the morning, the technology needs to be off and away. And then at the end of the day, that technology can come back on. So whether they're riding the bus home and they want to play a video game, they want to work on homework, listen to music, they can do that on the bus. At the high school and the middle school to secondary level, as they're waiting for maybe a sports or an extracurricular, once that final bell rings for that last period of the day, students would be able to use their personal electronic devices. Parents or persons in a parental relationship may request an exemption for their children to use personal electronic devices during the school day to manage a diagnosed medical condition. Right now, the only diagnosed medical condition that would allow an exemption is a student who uses their cell phone to monitor their diabetes. So we're working with our medical director. Those exemptions would come in, but to be upfront, that is the medical condition that we would allow students to have their phone. Other than that, that would not be allowed via the new law and policy. Include documentation from appropriate medical professional. Requests may be subject to review by our medical director, as I just mentioned. And if an exemption has been granted, the personal device may only be used for the purposes outlined in that exemption. I think that's self-explanatory. All right, next we have devices removed by administrators and retained in a secure location for a parent or guardian or person in a parental relationship to retrieve at the end of the school day. So the first time an electronic device comes out, it will be confiscated and it can be picked up at the end of the day. Violations may also result in consequences under the district code of conduct. So if a student chooses to continue to be insubordinate with the request of not having their phone in school, that may result in progressive discipline. Administrators will discuss the aims of the policy with students and their parents in their parental relations, anyone in a parental relation with their students. All right, middle and high school. So what I'm going to do now at this point in time is I'm going to turn over to Dr. Green, and then we'll go with Dr. D'Amico. They'll both have an opportunity to talk about what it will look like at the secondary level starting in September.
Thank you, Dr. Kosorek. So as Dr. Kosorek already said, at the middle school and high school across the whole district, all personal electronic devices, which include cell phones, headphones, earbuds, smartwatches, etc., are not to be seen or heard, and that includes a tone or a vibration from the phone from before they enter the school building. So that threshold. And at the secondary level, we are going to be providing each student with what we are calling a cadet honor pouch. So they are able to store those personal electronic devices away so that they are not in their pockets while they are traveling throughout the building and attending classes. So those devices must remain not seen or heard until the end of the day dismissal. Once that final bell rings, even though you are still in the building, at that point, you will be able to utilize your personal electronic devices. And really what we have known from talking with students and being parents ourselves, many of us, is learning that this is going to require some more proactive communication between students and families to limit that amount of communication during the school day. And yes, of course, there will be emergencies that come up from time to time. And when that happens, we will do our best to promptly contact students when a family member calls the school. But we are asking students and families to work together and plan ahead. And so, like for an example that I gave during our recent advisement lesson, getting home at the end of the school day, we know that's going to be something that has to be accomplished every single school day. So we need to make sure that we are planning ahead for how we were going to get home each day, whether it be taking the bus or prearranging some type of ride. So from the consequence standpoint, as we follow up at the high school level, the very first time that a student's personal electronic device is seen or heard, it will be confiscated and delivered to the appropriate administrative office. That student, as well as their family and their assistant principal, will receive an email notification, and the student will be assigned an after-school detention to be served either that same day or the next school day at the student's discretion. Any subsequent time after that first time is going to be an individualized follow-up with the assistant principal for a progressive consequence. The student and the family will also get an email as well for any subsequent incident. Now I'm going to move on to the middle school and Dr. D'Amico.
Thank you, Dr. Green. At Merton Williams, we are going to be pretty similar to what Dr. Green just explained. I've outlined our progression of consequences for if we were to see or hear a personal electronic device. In those instances, the device will be confiscated, brought to the main office. Consequence will be assigned, a referral will be submitted, and the family will be contacted. For the first offense, a student would be assigned 1 detention. For the second offense, a student would be assigned 2 detentions. Third, alternative to suspension, and progressively from there if there were subsequent offenses throughout the year. It's not something that would restart each marking period. It would be for the whole year. So students will be expected to follow this expectation. And if they don't, this is how we're going to follow up. And as in any situation, if we are asking a student who's in violation of the rule to turn over their device, we would expect that they would follow that expectation and follow that guidance. If not, then that would be an additional conversation that we would have to have with the student about appropriate behavior. I do want to just point to a little bit of data. We spent some time this spring having students take what we were calling the phone free challenge. And we had roughly 10% of our student population try it out for a week or 2 weeks. And after they did it, I asked them some questions and they took a survey. And I just wanted to point to some of that data because, again, getting back to our main goal of creating an environment that's free of distraction, or at least has less of a distraction, I think it's important to hear from the kids. So my lights just turned off. I apologize for that. When I asked students if putting their phone away and not using it for the entire day was easier or harder than they expected, over 90% of the students reported that it was much easier to go without their phone for the entire school day than they expected at the beginning of the week. And when I asked them about if it allowed them to focus better while they were in school, only 2% of the students who participated in this said that having no phone made them less focused. And in fact, 90% of them reported that their focus remained the same or was even better when they didn't have their phones during the school day. And what really clinched it for me is when I asked them, hey, do you think it's a good idea to not have your phone during the school day? Over 80% of our students reported that they thought it was actually a good idea to not have their phones during the school day. So I'm hoping that as we move forward with this next year, that we'll see students actually not only do benefit from it, but also recognize the holistic benefit of not being attached to their personal devices during the school day. Thank you.
And I would add, Dr. D'Amico, I talked to several students that said, hey, as long as everybody else doesn't have their phone, I'm okay not having my phone too. So just to build off on that, a lot of times kids think that they're going to miss something on one of the social media platforms, and that's not necessarily the case if everyone is without their phone.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn it over to Dr. Rudd. He's going to share the elementary expectations.
Great, thank you, Dr. Kocourek. So at the elementary level, for the most part at this point, this is the way that we're going with distraction-free learning is where we've been. So students, when they enter the building, they have their devices away. If a student next year does have their device out at some point, if it's seen or heard, then there would be a warning, and we would reach out to the parent or guardian to let them know about what had happened. And if it happened again, at that point, we would confiscate the device, so the staff member would confiscate it. It would be turned into the office, and there would be a consequence for that student, and then the device would be returned at the end of the day. And if it were to continue, at that point, we would reach out to the family to have them come in and pick up the device, and there would be some consequences associated. And for students that continue to struggle with that, we would most likely reach out and have a conference with the family to take a look at what the underlying factors are and to develop a plan together. Much like the secondary level, if for some reason a student is not following that expectation of turning it in when asked, then there would be some consequences associated with that. But I do want to emphasize in general that at the elementary level, this is something that's been in place for a while. And so when we've worked with our staff on it, although there are some additional steps that are involved here, ultimately, this is not a big change at the elementary level. And we definitely have noticed over time how avoiding that distraction benefits our students in their learning.
Thank you, Dr. Rudd. We've talked to school districts that have moved forward with utilizing the Yonder locking pouch. And one of the things that we learned is that in some of those schools, students tend to put a fake or old phone to lock in that pouch, and then they bring their regular phone in. So we just felt we really wanted to focus on the large group of our students that do the right thing each and every day and look at it more as a value add than coming out with more of a consequential or a consequence, excuse me, if you will, type of mindset starting out. So we'd like to start from a place of optimism, hoping that students can do the right thing and working with the students who are having difficulty with that decision rather than penalizing all the students. And also with the non-lockable pouch, this allows students to access their phone in case of emergency. So before we, Dr. Green, I'm going to have him, he's going to share with the audience what one of our pouches does look like.
Yep. Here's a very simple example. What we are doing is just getting multiple different colors so that we can have some type of student choice in the matter. And, as Dr. Kasork described, it doesn't lock. It just has a regular zipper, just as if you wanted to hold, pens or pencils as well as your personal electronic devices. And one thing that we haven't mentioned yet that I think is worth noting, one of the primary questions that we got from students as well as from staff is about, the amount of times we want to utilize technology for listening to some type of instructional video. And so at the secondary level, we are going to have, provided headphones that will be accessible for all students to be able to listen to, an instructional video at their teacher's discretion, that are wired headphones that would be plugged into their Chromebook.
Absolutely. And lastly, the logistics of bringing in 1,200 students at the high school in the morning, having them go through the process of locking their phone in the pouch, and then also at the end of the day, unlocking it. Not only are the pouches expensive, but the amount of labor force that it would take to make that happen, we do believe we can have similar results in a less effective and a more effective and efficient manner. So at this point in time, I would like to turn it over to Julie Forgione, our Director of Special Education.
Students will still be able to access the modifications and accommodations that are a part of their individual IEP or 504 plan. It will just be that we'll be using district devices or low-tech options to give students those accesses.
Great. And also Liz Thornton, our Director of Student Services. Anything to add from your side of the operations?
Yeah, as you had mentioned when talking in the board policy about exemptions, we will be having very limited exemptions for our students who use their personal devices as a medical device. So not necessarily as an accommodation or a modification that Julie talked about or a coping strategy, but specifically as a medical device, for example, for monitoring their blood glucose if they're a type 1 diabetic. And that will be with appropriate documentation from their medical provider and vetted through our district physician.
Liz, thank you very much. Last but not least, I'm going to turn over for any additional comments from our Director of Technology, Christy Schaefer.
As Julie talked a little bit about, we've been working closely with her department and staff in her department, as well as all staff in the district, to start to help to brainstorm any solutions and alternatives that are needed via our district devices that students already have access to. We've had great success already in starting to find ways that students can still meet any instructional objectives that they have. And we have instructional techs who are ready and have been working with those teachers and can work with students as well as we work through these transitions.
All right, thank you very much. At this point in time, we're going to turn the program over to Mr. Yates, our Director of Communication, and he will be sharing questions that have been sent in ahead of time and anyone who is asking questions during our webinar, and we will do our best to answer all of those for you this evening.
All right, thank you, Casey, and thank you everybody for joining us this evening. We have had some questions sent in during the week and during this evening as well. So some of these have been answered in the webinar, but we still want to make sure that we address everybody's questions that they took the time to submit to us. First off, Kristen, will the district be changing the policies where the parents cannot email their kids? One parent wrote in saying they were having a problem where the emails to their kids have been undeliverable. Is there any way the district might go about making sure that doesn't become a problem with so many emails coming into students?
Sure thing, Dave. At this point, we do not plan to enable outside email access for our K-8 students, which I think is what the question is referring to. This decision is part of our ongoing efforts to keep students safe from spam, advertisement, any potentially harmful outside communications that could come into their email. While we understand that the recent cell phone restrictions might raise questions about some of those alternative communication methods, we believe that maintaining this setting really is in the best interest of student safety at the K-8 level. We'll continue to monitor the impact of the new cell phone policy and evaluate any necessary adjustments we might have. But as has been mentioned earlier in the webinar, we will have availability for parents or guardians to contact their child by calling the main office, and we can quickly get in touch with students to deliver any message if necessary. Similarly, if a student needs to contact home for any reason, they can go to the office. Counseling offices and administrators' offices will have phone specific for student use. So we would hope to have the lines of communication open that way versus emailing the child individually. We will, like I said, continue to monitor this as we implement the new cell phone policy and monitor and adjust if we see a need to do so. But right now have it set as such for safety reasons.
All right, Kristen, thanks. Another one for you, actually. If the goal is education, why the ban on technology instead of teaching responsible real-world use of technology?
Given the one-to-one nature of our district with the student Chromebooks, we do teach digital citizenship and appropriate use of technology through the use of the Chromebook, instructional technology, etc. That does allow us to do so through certain filters and parameters, especially those as they become less restrictive in a developmentally appropriate manner as students get older. However, with cell phones having unfiltered, unfettered access, that's something that is better learned at home with families, given their particular values. And the reality is that this is a mandate from the governor. And so whether we agree or disagree, this is how we're going to operate. But we do absolutely valid point about teaching appropriate technology use. And that is something that we do take very seriously with our use of the Chromebooks and through that digital citizenship approach that we take with our students.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Maybe a question for one of the elementary level principals. What's the procedure when a parent drops an item off for a student who they need something for class or for immediately for personal reasons? Sometimes the parent might text to let them know when they've arrived at the building or at the security desk. What should the procedure be now that that phone is not an option?
Dave, I can take that for elementary. So they would drop whatever off to the main office or not to the main office, excuse me, to the front desk. And the person at the front desk knows to call the classroom, and then the child either gets sent down to pick it up or it gets sent down at a different time throughout the day.
All right, thank you very much, Derek.
And the procedure would be the same at the middle school as well. Get the information of the student, contact the student, and have them retrieve the item.
All right, thank you so much. Ned, a question for you. A parent is suggesting that we have data blockers, which is why they have dropped Zoom calls during pickup. Can you respond to the question of data blockers being in the district?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. First, I think reception among carriers is so very, very different in Hilton. My particular carrier, I questioned when I first started in the district 4 years ago about the reception, but again, it is carrier by carrier specific. And so the district does not have data blockers. We do know that the brick and mortar schools, as well as the protective film over our windows, do limit reception quite a bit. But there is not data blockers within the district.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dale. Casey, back to you for this one. With all the discussions and concern around cell phone use, why are we not taking further steps in the district to reduce the amount of vapes, drugs, alcohol, and edibles that would be brought into school?
We certainly are taking effort in being to educate our students on the harm of any of those drugs and their use. We've piloted many different programs in an attempt to address the vapes. One of the things that we've done is we had vape detectors in our bathrooms, and when the detector would signify that someone was vaping, it would send a ping to an administrator or security guard. So we tried that. Unfortunately, we made an investment there, a small investment, and we found that the technology was not there. It was rather, it didn't really help us in the sense of stopping students from vaping. We continue to be proactive with our health education. We also have put in some restorative education pieces for students who are caught vaping or using an illegal substance. So part of their restoration or consequence, if you will, is learning about the harms of those individual types of substances. And also I know that there is, once again, a community group very active in working on educating students. So a community approach to combating some of these concerns with our students as well. So, we certainly want to continue to make sure that students aren't using vapes and edibles or any of those things. We do have the code of conduct. We do have a full-time drug and alcohol counselor in the district, and we have some other strategies and mechanisms in place. I think once again, it's important to remember that although we do find value in the cell phone restriction, as mentioned by some of my administrative colleagues, this is a state mandate. So the decision is not, are we going to follow the state mandate? The decision is, how might we follow the state mandate? But we do have to move forward. We do believe that there is value. We have talked to school districts, and there's some documentation from the beginning of the year when the cell phone ban, if you will, took place to the end of the year. Students are happier, they're less anxious, there's more socialization, there's more focus on the academics. I can tell you the number of times I've walked in the high school and two students aren't even aware that I'm behind them while they're filming a TikTok. The amount of time spent in our restrooms on the cell phones, concerns around privacy when a student may make the very poor decision to record something that's happening in the district, possibly in the restroom, possibly a fight. You'll notice in our code of conduct, we have some restrictions there. So yes, I took a bit of a bird walk. Yes, drug and alcohol abuse is a focus of ours and will continue to be a focus of ours. And we see this as a complementary action to make sure that our students are safe and healthy.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kosarik. Kristen, another question for you, please. What is the procedure if a teacher wants their students to use the phones for an instructional purpose? Is that even an option anymore?
It will not be an option starting in September. Since March, we knew this legislation was possibly going to come to fruition. So we've been working with our program coordinators to identify any curriculum areas where we might have an impact based on this new legislation. Only a few small instances were noted, and teachers have already proactively adjusted some of their lesson plans and some tasks for next year to make sure that students can complete the work they need to using their district issued Chromebooks. And this allows us to maintain some instructional integrity while aligning to the new policy. So because the phones won't be available to be out, teachers won't be asking students to use them, and we will be ensuring that any of those tasks can be completed with the district issued Chromebook.
All right, thank you very much. This one is kind of open for anybody who'd like to answer it. We had a comment expressing that they're angry about this, claiming it's an invasion of privacy, and wanting them to know what the difference between a student using a cell phone and a student using a Chromebook are.
I'm happy to jump in. I think that when we talk about being a welcoming and affirming school district, believe it or not, all students do not have the same access to cell phones. You can see students from a flip cell phone to the latest and greatest cell phone as well. When Kristen was talking a little bit about our instructional practices, something that we're very proud of as a district, and as a result of the pandemic, we were able to get student devices to everyone in the district. A tribute to Christy Schaefer in the technology department as well, and everyone who made that happen. So I think there's a difference between that personal device. That personal device is a workaround to our filters, so anything can be accessed. And if that's a parent's prerogative during their time, or a guardian's prerogative when the student is at home, certainly that's a parent's right. While students are in school, though, looking to make sure that we're not accessing that and we're not communicating with other students when we shouldn't, really looking to pull back from that. But I think that's the difference between the instructional technology that's provided to students and then that personal device that students also may own.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kosarik. Dr. D'Amico, one for you, if you would be so kind. My middle schooler sometimes sits alone at lunch because she feels like she doesn't have any friends and has difficulty meeting new people. So therefore, she uses her phone to play games during lunch. Will there be any staff that will be helping to promote making sure children are not sitting alone at lunch?
Thanks for that. First off, as an educator and a parent, right, it hurts my heart to hear that someone feels like they don't have a connection or have friends. I certainly know that there's plenty of students who currently are using their phones during lunch. But to answer your question, yes, certainly we have lunch monitors who are teachers who work at the beginning of the year, especially to help organize students at places where they're going to feel comfortable. We also have some different areas in the building for a select group of students to have different types of lunch bunches who maybe benefit from a smaller lunch environment. Also, our counselors work to create peer groups Sometimes when there's students who are either new to the school or who are feeling disconnected, they work to find connections for those students. So yes, yes, we certainly will work to make sure that students feel like they have a spot and some people so they can socialize during lunch.
All right, thank you very much, Mark.
Mhm.
Casey, another one for you. Does this policy allow staff to confiscate or search students' phones?
So the only way we would ever search a student's cell phone would be probable cause, and that would be if a student did a drug deal or a student was sharing pornography or there was some type of threat made on the phone, then there would be the possibility for us to ask the student to share with us what is on their telephone. I don't call it telephone, cell phone. Sorry, I'm dating myself. As far as staff confiscating those, yes. It's the policy that they are not to have those phones in school. They need to be off and away in silence. So if we do see a phone, our staff that will be confiscating them in the district will be either our assistant principals or our security. So that is the goal here to make sure that we can be safe and thoughtful, but our staff will not be looking through the phone unless there was some type of probable cause.
All right, another one for you, Casey. Why is the state allowed to override parenting decisions?
That's something that you would have to talk to your elected officials about. Um, Josh Jensen is one of our elected officials that represent the Hilton area. You also have Senator Cooney. Those are things that you could call them and talk to them about. You could reach out to the governor as well. I remember when we went through the horrible time with COVID and a lot of people feeling that their rights were being violated by the requirement to wear masks. So I know there's always questions around why the school follows what New York State says they need to do. There's usually a question about funding. So what I will tell you is the Board of Education and the superintendent take an oath of office every July at a reorganization meeting that we will carry out the Constitution of New York State. So whether we agree with a law with New York State or not, because we take that oath, it would be a violation of our oath if we did not follow that expectation. And as far as funding goes, often people will say, well, you're just doing it because you don't want to lose the funding. And the answer is probably yes and no. So to be very candid and upfront, unfortunately, as you do your history and research behind how schools became centralized, when we had one-room schoolhouses across the area, there was much more decision-making by that individual school and the parents and guardians that sent their students to those schools. But as we moved into the 1900s and schools started to centralize, part of the centralization was centralizing and then receiving state aid from the government to run our schools. One of the things that cost us the most to run our schools is paying for our staff. I would say over 75%, if not more, of our funding required to run the district is for staffing. So if we were to, for example, say to the state, we're not interested in following your law, we are going to break off from you and no longer be under your leadership, we would give up close to 50% of our funding. So with 50% of our funding gone out of over $100 million budget, we would not be able to carry on. It wouldn't be a matter of laying off some staff and not buying as many pencils. It would paralyze the school district, so we wouldn't be able to do that. Is it a promise that you're going to lose state funding if you don't follow this mandate? My guess is eventually. I think the state would give you several warnings, and then it would be a requirement. Going back to the masking, not to go to a bad place for people, but there was about a 24-hour period where there was some confusion and the government, a mandate had expired and the masks were able to be lifted for one day. And then some districts chose to follow that. And then they were greeted with a phone call from the government and from the State Department of Education mandating that the masks go back on immediately. So I just use that as an example. I know it's probably an emotional example, but there are checks and balances with the state government, and they do have a track record of holding us accountable if we do not fulfill their expectations. And more than ever, that goes for our federal government as well. And what's a fascinating fact is not only New York State government, but also Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is at the federal level, also believes in the banning of cell phones in public schools. So we have a federal and state government on both sides of the aisle that agree that cell phones and electronic devices should be banned in schools.
All right, Casey, another one for you. Are families able to opt out?
So no, they're not. The only opt-out would be if they were to homeschool their children. As we learned earlier, you could, if your student is diabetic and utilizes the phone to manage blood sugar, and it goes through our medical director, that would be the only exception. Unfortunately, there is no opt-out.
All right, and
Casey,
Casey?
I wonder if I could just add something. I was middle school principal in a neighboring district from 2007 to 2018. And at that time, we did not allow cell phones, and students did very well. So just to provide parents a little reassurance that the district has added phones to our main offices, our counseling offices, because that was something that was super helpful when we did not allow students to use cell phones while being principals. So I just want to reassure parents and staff that students can do very well under this. We have individuals that can answer your phones, get the packages to your student in a timely manner so that your student can continue during the day and have a successful learning experience. So there is time before this ban, when we ban cell phones in individual districts, in schools, and students did very, very well. So I just wanted to add that piece.
All right, thank you, Ned. Casey, back to you right now. Can you review the expectations for phones being off? Just a little clarification. A parent thought initially in the presentation, we stated that phones could be on vibrate when they were in the pouches. Is this accurate?
Yeah, so the cell phones need to be off and away. I believe that without vibration, I may have misread that, excuse me, but it's without vibration. So it's on silence, you can't hear it. So we're not going to be searching students for cell phones. That's not what we're looking to do. We're looking for a student to potentially use the pouch for their organization so they know where their phone is, where their earbuds are, where their smartwatch is, and put that away in their bag. If a student elects not to use this, but the phone is off, away, and not vibrating, then they would be meeting the expectation. The key here is that the phone is off and away, is not on vibration, and it cannot be seen or heard. And then once again, if there were an emergency, then a staff member would say, you are free to access your phone.
One other question? No?
No.
Okay. That, I think, is all the questions we have right now.
All right. Well, I'm going to close things out. First off, I want to thank all the administrators and staff that are on the call tonight. I greatly appreciate all of your efforts. This is certainly first of many communications. This is going to be recorded. It's going to be placed on our website. We will be emailing this home to parents and guardians as well. If you're interested in looking back at it for your reference, I know that the building administration is working with students to help educate the students. I know moving forward between now and September 1st, we'll continue to remind folks of the change in the practice. If you have questions, please contact your student's building principal to ask any questions you may have. I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have. If there's a question around a student with an IEP, you can certainly reach out to Julie. If there are any other questions, certainly reach out to the district, and we will do our best to get you in touch with the person that can answer those best. And I think this is a huge partnership with our families and our staff, and I know that we can make a positive difference for our students. I do recall a time when cell phones were not existent in school. And to echo what Mr. Dale had said, in his prior positions, enforcing that was something that went over very well. People worked together to do that. And then to many parents on the call tonight and guardians on the call tonight, there were a time when we didn't have cell phones and we were able to move forward and things went okay. So just once again, to close on a positive, although we may not like to be told what is happening to us by our government, there are positives in the research on restricting electronics for students, and we look forward to partnering with you as we move forward. So once again, in closing, thank you to everybody who participated tonight, and there will be a recording of this. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the district. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. Take care.